republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, we will call to order the November 6, 2025 Village Board meeting. Number 3, roll call shows all trustees present except for Jim, who has been excused. Staff is all present except for Allie, and she has been excused. And our attorney, Ashley, is present. 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, October 16th, 2025, regular board meeting minutes. B, presentation and of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda.
I'll second. Roll call. Carrie? Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
No.
Okay. 7, committee reports. A, Public Works Committee. Shauna, do you want to report on anything from tonight?
No, not really.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything to report. There's no real action that we're doing, so.
Okay. Then we will go to 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business, discussion and possible action on public hearing date for 2026 budget.
We just have to set this before, it's normally the first meeting in December, so we have to set this before December.
So the next, before the, like the next meeting, could we do it before the next meeting then, or at the next meeting?
Set it for December.
December 4th is the
Yes,
day.
4th.
Oh, December 4th?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
just our first meeting. It's the final budget approval.
Right.
Okay. So you don't need any other action on that? It's all set?
Is it part
Well,
of?
you guys just have to make the motion to,
Yeah.
Add it to the agenda?
yeah.
I'll make a motion to add the public hearing for the 2026 budget to the December 4th, 2025 meeting. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on updates to ordinance section 42-125, private sewer laterals.
So this is an ordinance created for private sewer laterals. I guess if you have any questions on it, Ron Wolf is here to help with it. Or why it's necessary.
Is it that we don't currently have anything in our ordinance regarding this?
True.
So this is just simply adding, I was trying to figure out what changed, but then I couldn't find an old one, so that would make sense.
Right. Basically, it's for us being able to force the resident to
Hire a rotor on their own type of thing? I mean,
So, we're doing the sewer laterals on Main Street. We're gonna be doing our side. This is to force the residents to be able to do it on their side. Is, I guess, the short gist, unless
Sure.
you wanna
Let me give a
update.
little.
Yeah.
So, in a public utility, the water system, the village, owns the main and the water lateral to the curb stop box, which is somewhere in the area of the sidewalk, might be one side or the other sidewalk, but to the property line. So the village owns the water lateral to the property line, to that shut-off valve. The homeowner owns from that point to the home. Sewer laterals are done differently. The village owns the sewer main, the 8-inch, typically out in the street. The homeowner owns all the way from that point underneath the street to the home. So the responsibility, where the ownership is different on a water line versus a sanitary sewer line. In the past, almost everybody, when they did a street project or a utility project, the village would repair sewer mains. If you had an old clay line that was in bad shape and leaking, or had breaks in the pipe, the village would replace the sewer main. The laterals to the homes were basically the same generation, but everybody did this. really wasn't technology to look at the sewer laterals, 20, 30 years ago. We could put a camera in the pipe and see what's going on in the 8-inch main, but we couldn't tell what was happening in the lateral. The reality is that the sanitary sewer laterals are often as bad, actually often are worse than the mains. Those goes through and replaces mains, but all these laterals are left behind in poor condition, full of cracks, full of roots. And all those cracks and defects let groundwater into the sewer system. So you could replace the main and tighten that up, new PVC pipe, and that's all perfect. But you've got more feet of private lateral in the village than you have feet of main. And if they're clay, almost without exception, they leak like a sieve and leak water into the system. So without the ordinance, there's really not a mechanism or a way to tell somebody, hey, we found out that your lateral is defective, you have to fix it. It's your property, you've got to go through the effort to fix that and stop those leaks. So this helps define what that means, what is a defective lateral, and then sort of the process to deal with it. So if they're belligerent and say, well, no, we're not going to do it, you can force them. You've got to know a mechanism to force them to repair their defective infrastructure that's leaking into your city system, village system, city side. So that's the background on it, why that's important. So
Can you explain for people why it would matter for us to reduce I&I into our sewer system? Most people probably think the water coming into it is just going to go into our plant. Why would we want to reduce that?
Well, so you spend millions and millions of dollars on a wastewater treatment system, and they have a finite capacity. They can only treat a maximum so many gallons per day or so much biologic demand. As the village grows, they're always, there's a population projection, and we try and look out in the future. So anytime a plant's redone, you try and build it so it's good for the 20 or 30 years that the equipment should last. And then every couple decades you gotta go through a project to spend another $5 or $8 million or $20 million. You have to spend a big pile of capital to upgrade your treatment plant to match the capacity that's coming in from your collection system. So if you've got 10,000 leaks everywhere in your collection system, and all that's piling into your mains and ending up at the wastewater plant, instead of your plant being good for 25 or 30 years, it might only be good for 15 or 20 years before you start bumping into capacity problems with the plant. Your force main out to the Wolf River is only so big. You've got limitations in terms of how much water you can push through that system. And I don't know, we haven't had really bad springs lately. I don't know if you've had recent backups where you've had flooded basements or so you've been probably a little lucky here. You've got a little more terrain in Hortonville than some places. That works to your advantage because your mains end up with a little more capacity. It's a little sandier here. If you were in Cacan or something where it's all clay, then those leaky pipes really leak. Here, it's a little sandier in some spots, so the leaky pipe might not leak into the main. It might just, the water might just go down into the ground. But it's basically a way to limit what the horizon looks like for having to upgrade your wastewater plant, and then also every gallon that goes through is pumped and treated and chlorinated, and it costs money to handle all of those excess gallons also. It doesn't come free to send it through Aaron's wastewater plant. It comes at an expense. So if you don't at some point get a hold of what's going on with the private system, you can end up with problems potentially in your collection system, but more so where we see it is in the treatment system, where you start getting blown out spring of the year. If you start tracking that, you start looking at your peak flows, and you're starting to have really high flows in, say, March 15th to April 15th, when frost is going out of the ground and everything's saturated and wet after winter. Start seeing peaks there, or peaks a couple problem. If you see an immediate peak, like, you know, it just rained 3 inches last night and an hour later he's got a peak, then you might have a bad, like a lid is open somewhere in a manhole in a ditch and water just flowing straight in. We call that inflow. The leaky pipes we would call infiltration. So you can kind of tell by the chart a little bit of where this water is coming from.
And not to stretch this out, but I have more of a specific question. So, reading this, it looks like, so you're coming through and doing a main, and let's just use Main Street as the example.
Okay.
And so you have all these different laterals that feed into that main.
Yes.
This ordinance, what it does is it's saying that the one true source is whoever the contractor is that the village has determines whether or not a lateral is okay or not.
No.
No.
The way it, you know, the language right in front of you.
And I just need to understand,
If the village,
like,
if the village or their representative, whether that's, you know, Aaron or me, or if somebody determines that that lateral is defective, and the way that's usually done is with pre-construction televising. And we've got that already, and I can tell you that there's a house on Main Street that has a clay lateral with defects in it, right? I'm not naming names, but.
no,
Yeah,
what
I'm
I'm
just telling
looking
you
at is
the
a
reality of
televising
it.
fee of $50. So I'm like, okay, so then is that something charged to the homeowner then? Because then the homeowner then has some input of how it's remediated and
Sure.
as long
So
as it's approved.
the way it's structured is the village discovers the defect. The premise here is that we don't necessarily go around looking for, you know, nobody's gonna go televise the whole village and find, you know, 293 defective laterals. Cause it's just, it's untenable then, because not only that, but the village has to clean up their act first. So if they've got defects in their mains, they gotta fix those. You can't go tell the property owner, hey, you got a crack in your pipe, well, you got 10 in the main. So, you have to be a little judicious here. You do it as a project's coming up and you say, okay, if we're doing, we'll use the Main Street project now. If we're doing that project, we're gonna televise and identify where those defective laterals are, or defects in the mains. If there's defective laterals, we sure don't wanna put a brand new street on top of that defective lateral. So, the way it's structured is the homeowner's notified that they've got a defective lateral and they are responsible to get it repaired. What I would call the ordinary method of that is that the homeowner then would have to hire a plumber to go repair, replace their lateral. That's very expensive and it's disruptive for the village too, because everybody that you notify could hire a different plumber and you gotta keep track of who, you know, there's some good guys and some not good guys and they're digging out in the street.
This ordinance cleans that up is what it's trying to do, but then I see like a $50 monthly fee for televising. Is that something that residents are paying?
It's failure,
It's failure to correct it.
failure to allow televising.
Right, so it's a penalty if you,
Okay,
if for some
so,
reason somebody were, I think there's language in there also that if, you know, if you fail to correct your defective
Okay,
lateral,
I
there's
understand.
teeth in the ordinance.
and this gives us enough teeth that if somebody's not correcting something, that we can make them correct it.
I guess that's my question, is how is that fee imposed? Is that through a citation? I'm just looking at this quickly now for the first time, so I'm not being critical of it,
Sure.
that's my first question is, do we have to go to court to enforce these, or is it gonna be a part of a bill?
Well, the easiest and well, first of all, this normally doesn't go on very long because nobody's gonna want a continuous $50 a month bill for refusing to have televising done. But the easiest way would be that it would be put onto the sewer bill, and I don't know the mechanics of that. But you're right, there isn't anything that explicitly says the mechanism to impose that fee, how you extract that from the belligerent homeowner.
That's the only thing I caught in this was that there's like fees and then there's, you know, I understand things need to get corrected, things need to get fixed, and it's the homeowner that's doing it. But when, yeah, I guess that was more my question is like, what does this have enough teeth to actually
Yeah.
enforce it?
So I can tell you from experience, because I've been doing these lateral remediation projects for a decade. main, we launch and we televise the laterals. I have never in a decade, never seen a community notify the residents that they're televising their lateral. The camera goes up the main and then there's a lateral camera, a separate camera that gets launched up from the main towards the house. I don't know how anybody would ever even know that that took place, because we launch from the street up the lateral. There are some cases where, when we get into construction, and we can talk about that later if we need to, but there are some cases where you have to get into the home and televise from the home towards the street. That's very rare. So at any rate, so we go through, we televise, we've got all the mains televised, we have every lateral on the project televised. From that, then we get the list of who has a defective lateral and who has a good lateral. Because there are some cases where somebody's replaced a lateral, or maybe it's cast iron and it's still just fine. Then everybody's notified that has the defective lateral that, hey, you got a defective lateral, it has to be repaired. I've never run into it where somebody had to be charged with a fee monthly, because what happens is then when we bid the road reconstruction project along with the sewer repair, we bid lateral replacement into the basement as part of that contract. It's an optional service that the village offers as a convenience to the homeowner. So when we bid this, let's say there's 25 laterals on a stretch of road. So we've got pricing to pipe burst those laterals, so we don't even have to dig them. It's done trenchless from the street all the way to the basement. So we repair those laterals. A lot of times we'll bring in a new water line at the same time. And we do it for, depending on the job, we'll say $5,000 to $7,000 per property. The homeowner signs a waiver, and that's not part of this, but so homeowner's notified, you've got a defective lateral, you've got to fix it. There's a second thing, a waiver that says, the homeowner signs and says, I give the village permission to fix this lateral and charge me for the work. They don't have to sign the waiver, they can hire their own contractor to do it. We don't care how they get the lateral fixed, we just care that it's repaired. In every instance where somebody's like, that's crazy, that's way too much, I'm just gonna go get another, I'm gonna have a plumber do this, I'm not gonna be part of that. I don't know, I don't think I've ever had a project in 10 years where the person didn't come back and say, all right, where's the waiver, I'm signing it, I'm gonna get it done. They can't get it done as cheaply as we can do it, because we're doing 25 at a time, we do it trenchless. They don't have to pay for the repair in the road, because if they, like, I'll use yours if you don't mind as an example,
Yeah.
the connection would be in the middle of the street. It's gonna cost $2,000 or $3,000 just in traffic control to go dig that hole in the middle of the street. Nobody incurs that if we do it as part of a project, because the street's under construction and, detoured or whatnot anyway. So, the most economical way to get it done is just have everybody's replaced as part of the project, and they sign a waiver that allows then the village to charge them for the cost of that service. And if they don't want to sign the waiver, then they have to hire a plumber and they do it on their own. So it's not,
Does that give you enough teeth? And I guess anytime we look at doing an ordinance, I look at, well, what if somebody doesn't comply with the ordinance? Then what are our options? Like if somebody says, no, I know you're telling me I need to redo my lateral, I'm just not gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then it's clear in here. Okay,
I think we
that's,
charge them $50 a month, don't we?
yeah.
I think they,
It's highly unlikely,
right,
but there's always that possibility.
and I don't know, maybe at some point, I think, wouldn't the DNR get involved with the discharge of, no?
I've never seen,
If they're just,
I've never heard of the DNR
'cause I know we
forcing
do
a
anytime.
homeowner to
Oh,
replace a lateral that was leaking. There's every clay sewer main, every clay sewer lateral has cracks, almost without exception. So they just, there's not enough interest in stirring up every person in in the state of Wisconsin, they're not gonna try and, you know, create havoc by saying, hey, if you've got a leak, your sewage could be, you know, entering the soil and, you know, contaminating the groundwater. They're just not going there, cause it's just too many of those problems. Now, if you have a problem where Aaron starts exceeding, you know, he has to bypass at the treatment plant or something, and that's, honestly, that's how a lot of this got started, was by communities that were under orders from the DNR to clean up their systems, because they were, you know, they had such huge peaks, and basements were getting backed up into, and lift stations were getting blown out, and the treatment plant was having to bypass and whatever, and then after enough of those experiences, the DNR came in and said, all right, we wanna, you know, you've got 2 years to come up with a plan and 10 years to implement it, to cut down this infiltration, you know, to a manageable level, because we can't have you discharging raw sewage into the creek, right? So that's kind of the genesis of this in a lot of places, is that they were under orders by the DNR, but that was on the municipal side, not on the homeowner side.
I have a question,
Sure.
and it's been a long time since I've looked at this issue. But, so, a homeowner is notified that we're gonna televise their private lateral. Do they have an opportunity to object, or what, if anything, can they do at that point? Cause if I recall, at one time, there was a dispute as to whether that's a constitutional trespass, going onto their property.
Via the lateral?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
So once they're notified though, can they object to it, or is it just, we're coming and here's when we'll be there?
They could, I suppose, and this would be the mechanism. If they object, then you say, well, then, yeah, that would be an interesting quandary, because if they object, and I don't know, without evidence of them having a defective lateral, well, you could televise and camp out at their connection, and if you see constant water running in, that probably constitutes enough evidence that they have a defect of some sort in the lateral, and then you say, all right, then you televise it, you prove to us that you don't have a defect in your lateral.
Which I think there's some communities that do it that way, that will stop televising at the property line.
Right.
But it's probably been a decade since I looked at that
I've
issue.
not,
You haven't
I've
run
not
into
run
that?
into that, and I can tell you that the televising that exists right now includes launching on the laterals, right or wrong. In all of the hundreds and hundreds of laterals that I've been involved with, the main projects, and we've televised up the laterals, nobody's even been notified, much less has a question come up about, is it a
Yeah, and there are other
violation?
utilities that we walk onto people's property and, you know,
Sure.
you're looking at the water meter or whatever, but I
Right.
just wondered if that's something you've run into.
I haven't, and then, you know, and by all means, if this needs another month's worth of massaging, or another 2 weeks or something to add or clarify something, I guess that's perfectly fine.
Do you have other communities that are using the same language?
This is modeled after grilling.
So I guess I would wonder too how they're enforcing those penalties, if that's by citation or if that gets added onto a bill.
To mine, I didn't bring my folder, to my knowledge, Brilliant does not, Nathan, did you add the $50?
Chuck did in your office.
Okay, that wasn't in, so that language doesn't exist in Brilliant's ordinance, that this originated from.
So I just have to check it out.
Yeah, that came back with one of the rough drafts, and.
Okay. Well, and I apologize, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just
Sure,
trying to
yeah,
understand
no, that
it.
wasn't in the initial, draft that came back after,
I wonder if Sheboygan's doing it that way, cause that's where it came from.
maybe he's got a parallel ordinance somewhere else, so.
I have a question. Is this a one-time fee that the village is going to impose on this individual, this resident, and they're gonna pay it in 30 days, or is there payment
A
plan?
monthly fee, I think.
I'm
So for
sorry.
each month that you're not in compliance.
Are you asking about if there's
I'm
somebody
talking
that
about
was
the
the
actual
Repair,
Construction.
repair.
repair?
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
replacement, I guess.
so the repair is done as basically a special charge. You can't do it, because it's their private property that the village is repairing. So So they sign a waiver that says, we're going to give you we agree to pay a charge for this work, because you can't cover it under your, like, special assessment, your police powers that you would normally have. If, say, for example, curb and gutter or sidewalk, or, you know, some of those items are, your special assessment policy doesn't exist, but in the cases where you're special assessing somebody, if they have there's a benefit to them with the project, you have what's called police powers that allow you to assess them for the work or part of that work. You can't do this here because it's not public work, it's not working in a public way, it's their private lateral. So they sign a waiver, and usually with that, most communities set this up ahead of time where you can either pay it in full, or you can pay it over 3 years or 5 years at our borrowing rate plus 1% or
Okay,
something.
that's,
So there's a,
that's the question.
yeah, they're almost always paid back over 3 years.
Amortized over.
That's, you have to give them, because it's be very hard for people to come up with a check for $5,000 or $7,000 all in one lump sum. So usually the village defrays that by spreading that over time with interest. But you get a fair amount of people that are like, no, I just want to owe it, I don't want to pay interest, and they just come in and write a check for $5,300 or something.
So Attorney Lahaki, do you need maybe a couple weeks to look this over before, I mean, this can come back to us in a couple weeks, right?
I can't offer an opinion as to those fees, and it just, and I apologize, I didn't realize that Chuck had been working on this, cause I'm looking at it for the first time. So if there's clarification that you're needing from me, I would need more time for that.
I'm good, I'm just more curious, because you had some questions too, so I mean, if we need to defer it, or if we wanna, I don't know, this is up for approval, possible approval tonight, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, realistically, we just wanted it done a few months before we end up.
I don't think there's a danger in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's nothing imminent that we have to.
We just didn't wanna do it right before the Main Street meetings of the homeowners, so.
Have we in place this payment policy yet? Do we know what we are gonna offer? As far as the payment of the trenching and, the repair of the lateral? We were just talking about that just a minute ago.
Don't know what the rate is
No.
yet, we don't know it,
No, we
this
don't
is
know
just,
what the cost is gonna be for any of it.
this is just the resolution basically saying
The-
you're responsible for it,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
That's a whole separate.
That's step 2. This is
Okay.
step 1, which
Okay.
is give yourselves the mechanism to force this to be done. And this next step would then be to define, okay, now how are we gonna handle this? Cause they're each gonna have, then you can pick the terms and the interest rate
Pricing.
and all
Okay.
those type of things later. And you should do that before you initiate this the first time. You should decide on that, because you cannot do that the night of a public hearing, because it'd be like having blood in the water. If they sense that one person thinks, well, just pay it all up front, and the other one's like, oh, we'll give them 10 years at 0% interest, that you should have that settled before you bring
That's the
anybody in.
concern, yeah, that was, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So,
but we've got time for all that. So
Yep.
that's step 2, got it.
Table it,
I think
I
we
think-
should,
Ashley look at it.
well, I would like Ashley to look at it maybe, or to find out how the collection process is working based on how whoever it was decided that to add the $50, like how do they collect it wherever this is based off of. Ashley's basically getting Ashley's questions answered of how we enforce, collect.
yeah,
They
but
added the
just a
taxes,
few
do they-
added words that says, $50 per month as a charge to your sewer
Right,
bill or something.
whatever it may be, just
maybe
get
a pretty
clarification
simple-
on how it's done.
It's just 2 weeks, I think we're,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
fine.
bring it back to the next meeting.
yeah.
Okay, then we will move on to C, discussion and possible action on resolution R-19-25, budget amendment 2.
this is, basically for the computers, that the police bought. it's gonna amend the current budget, basically adding in the reserve funds, the $8,662.50 of reserve funds that they would be using for those, computers that were replaced. And then at the bottom, it shows you the change on the reserve funds for the police equipment.
Just a budget change, budget between buckets.
Any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R-19-25, a 2025 budget amendment.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, Carrie?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. D, discussion and possible action on final pay app for the Nash Street Utility Project to Terrace Manor subdivision.
This is the final pay application with retainer, for the project that was completed to get water and sewer over to the Terrace Manor subdivision.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the final pay app for the Nash Street Utility Project to Terrace Manor subdivision in the amount of $32,549.97. I'll second.
Roll call, Carrie?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. E, discussion on initial columbarium design.
So, working with Matthews and Monuments, they're really early on in the design process, but realistically, what they're asking is that if you guys like the circle or square version better. None of the colors or anything has been picked. I know I added that, you should have seen the email in the packet. Basically, they were just trying to figure out some of that stuff. And then things to think about would be if we wanted lighting, security cameras, or flagpoles, benches, planters, other features. I'm sure those would probably be in it. I guess they were just kind of curious on where we were at thought-wise on design.
Will there be a difference in cost with the round versus the square? Or you don't know that at this time?
I would suspect there would be slightly different costs because you're having less materials, I think, with the round.
I actually like the round better. I like the look of the round better.
I like the look of the round better. Me too.
I just think it's more personal. It's
Yep.
more cozy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other question that I had about this was the height of each of these. I don't know what they call,
Columbariums.
Columbariums, okay. But I know that they sometimes can go higher than this. Like, are these, can we add on to them later on?
No. I don't think you would go much higher.
No. How tall are they? I was trying to figure
It's
that.
about, I don't know exactly, but generally, I think in the past when I was looking at it, it was around 6 feet for like the floor. When you start looking at going higher, it's like not usually something they.
Okay. They didn't look 6 feet to me. They looked shorter than that. That's why I was questioning the height.
Yeah.
And they're saying each unit contains 64, totaling 256 per setup. So that's quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's decent.
I don't know that we need to go higher, you know.
Well, I was more curious about the height. They just looked short
Looked
to
like
me.
they were like bookshelves.
Yeah, they looked like they were like bookshelves. And I thought if we're gonna go bookshelves, I wouldn't want to go higher, you know.
I think the more you get, the cheaper it's, the better it's gonna be expense-wise too. So, and there is that give and take where you have 64, it's a lot different than you have 72. You have a lot more bodies for the amount of cost of it is. Because I mean, if you're talking, there's 256 niches in a circle. You know, you're talking potentially $300,000 maybe more. When you divide that out, you're at least at $1,000 for cost. So the more you add in, the less those the costs come down. There allows for a little more.
I did check with someone
Yeah.
that has theirs in the Catholic cemetery. They cost around $3,500 per drawer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you can
so-
charge higher amounts and,
And that's for 2 people. Yeah,
Each drawer is 2 people?
yes. So, you know, we would recoup our money, I would assume.
yeah, well, and that's the other thing, so, the hard thing right now is, obviously, we don't know costs, we don't have estimates there, so then, but if we would do anything, you're always better to go wider than taller, just because what ends up happening is those top pieces, you end up having to price them at a different rate, because people at the way top that are, you know, that they're leveling with that, so they don't sell as quickly. Yeah. So,
And why would we really need security lighting? We don't have it in the, for any by the graves or anything like that. I mean,
they're
why
just
have
asking
the,
questions.
why have the extra cost and the cameras? Because we don't have cameras on headstones, and I guess,
We do get, yeah, I think some of the problems is damage being done to those headstones, so it's a little different, I think, with the headstone potentially, but I don't, it's harder,
To replace.
yeah. So, I don't know, I'm not saying I would have it either way, I think we've had people who have complained to us about damage to their headstones and have wanted us to replace them and have
Maybe-
thrown fits about
Maybe
it.
we need to throw something in the paperwork for that, saying that
We
we are
do.
not responsible for
We
it.
do, they just,
I get it, I get it, it's emotional, but
yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I like the round design too.
I prefer the round, I just think it's more personal. I think it looks prettier too.
so we would
Softer.
start off with one and then when they're filled, do additional, cause I did see the 3 different,
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, most likely, it, depends, most likely, I would just say, it's just hard, cause you're never gonna be able to match the same look later on, right? So,
so
those
you're
are,
saying do them all 3 at once?
no, I just, depending on, I guess. I
We should
wouldn't
just
say-
consider that when we do our design, something that's going to be able to be taken or matched
Right.
later
Yeah.
on. So
Right,
it may not coordinate exactly, but at least complement
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
one that's red.
I wouldn't expect to do more than one right away, but if the price came in decent at that time and we, you know, within the first year, maybe sold a good amount, maybe then we do look at the next year going out and doing the other 2 or the other 1 or, you know, but
So what does everyone feel about all the accessories? Cause we would need to have that,
I think benches
get
are nice,
quotes.
I like the one my dad's got in Appleton. There's benches out there, which is nice to sit at, planters are kinda nice, but, you know, you start getting into that, now we have
Now we have
maintenance
to
on 'em.
maintain that and who's planting in there and, yeah.
I think,
But would so the one that Pop was in, it has like a planter
A planter in the
on
center.
the door or on the
Oh.
thing, so each
Okay.
individual person could put, it's just a
mm,
small,
oh, yeah,
like a planter or a little ring that they can put whatever on it. Maybe that's something that they offer so that we're not creating a center planner, right, where we're maintaining this thing, but at
I guess a
least-
single center planter wouldn't be horrible. I think what I was picturing was like if you had the square one, if you had them in corners, and I've seen them where they're all over, can be a bit much.
Somebody's gotta go water it and.
well, the thing is, the one
But if it,
in Appleton where Papa is, I mean, obviously, this is a wall. I mean, there's one, like, is that,
Right.
they're like way up there, I don't know, no one does anything with any of those, but, the buttons on the bottom, like up to, like, the 6-foot height, have like a ring on them, so that you can put a little, it basically holds a vase, a little vase, that people can put flowers in, and it's not something you maintain, it's just like, that person has to maintain their own plot, but it's,
I probably would shy against that. We've had issues with people who have that on their gravestones, people steal out their planters, and then they're calling us and requesting us to pay for their $5 planter cases. I don't know, and just,
I just don't want it to look cold. That's my problem. I don't want it to be where we simply have this wall of doors and drawers. It's a big dresser.
yeah.
And there's nowhere to put anything that says, hey, this is my grandma's favorite flower, or this is, I wrote a letter and da-da-da-da. You know, people go and they change out the flowers for the season, or they put wreaths out, or whatever it may be. You know, whatever. But I would hate for it to be strictly a cold wall of drawers, because that's not what we want either.
I water flowers in a cemetery like 2 to 3 times a week when I plant live flowers. So I worry more about when the world's gonna be watering this and maintaining that. Cause it is two times a week at least.
That's why I'm saying I would rather see something on the individual door and say we don't use real flowers for those, because
I
it can
think
damage the drawers below or whatever.
the benefit of the flower pits doesn't make it so the staff have to be there.
I guess.
You're gonna have, otherwise you're gonna have staff not being there at all, and you're gonna have stuff in the corners of these places. I mean, obviously, we're not doing the square one, but
Yeah.
the round, if you have a retention wall in there, there's gonna be junk that's gonna get up there, and then we're gonna be fielding calls at, like, it looks like crap up here, people left stuff, and so I don't think it hurts to necessarily, and doesn't mean that you have to have, like, you can plant anything in there. I'm sure Aaron knows a few things that are very little water needed.
I struggle because someone's gonna plant this little thing for somebody, and then someone's gonna rip it out and say, and then someone's gonna call you and say, those are violets for my Aunt June, and then they're gone and they're mad, and because someone planted their daylilies there instead,
Well,
and
this
they've
would
taken
be
over
our
the joint.
planting.
Yeah.
We wouldn't allow anyone else to plant it.
Okay, as long as you do that, because otherwise I can see if it was like a community planter.
No.
No.
I mean, I could just see that being horrible.
Next thing you know, people are stripping ashes.
Yep.
No joke.
Your dog fights Fidos in there.
So what do we wanna see? Let's.
And we mow it.
I mean, we can see options too. I mean, they just wanted us to get that in our mind of kind of the things that you want to potentially see. I don't have to go back to them and tell them, we want this planter.
I like round, and I like the idea of a bench somewhere to sit. I think that's important.
Yeah, so I'll just respond to them. Most people like the round look. They're gonna come back with different color schemes too, and show different concepts. So.
I don't know that we need like the
Do we have a
necessary lighting.
cemetery subcommittee?
Or what?
So
You should.
we don't. I don't know that we need
I would
video
think-
cameras or anything.
Is it a public facility? It's not public works.
Public facilities.
Public facilities.
Who marks the graves now and does everything? I mean, is it Public Works? Yeah, so our Public Works Department handles the cemetery as far as upkeep and, and then we have the rules, we have cemetery rules, so.
So do we think that this should be a public works?
I think it's
Committee
kind of,
thing?
it crosses over into
You
facilities
can
as
do
well.
POW
No
too,
different
and then
than
if
our-
anyone wants to be here, we'll just
I'm
get
just-
to come.
Like, it's no different than a park, the guys
And
take
not
care of
put
the
it
park,
all on
but then
us
it's
all the
still a
time,
public
because I
facility.
hate that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, put it to a committee and let the committee
Right.
come up with their
And
choices and
it's
then bring
much
it back to the
easier
board.
Right.
For village residents to come to a subcommittee than a big board meeting like this or something. I don't know, and you get more of their opinion. That's me. Subcommittee.
I would say, let's bring back some options of going with the round and the benches and whatever else, color
Yeah,
options, I
do
think.
you guys want it in a committee, or do you want it in a cow, or?
I wouldn't mind it in a committee.
I wouldn't mind it.
I wouldn't either.
Public Works, Public Facilities,
Public facilities.
Where
Sure.
Public Works handles everything as far as upkeep, I think it should be a Public Works committee. Don't
Sure,
you?
sure.
Sure, no different than a park though. Public Works handles the parks, but it's still
Yeah.
public facilities, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the others. It doesn't matter. I'm
Well,
on both.
Aaron's there either way, right? So
Yeah.
let's just call it public
Just-
facilities
just call it
and
whatever.
let's call it public facilities, and Aaron's there either
Yeah.
way, so
Yeah.
he can talk about maintenance and what his thoughts are on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
In design.
Yep.
So add that to
How it
the
affects
next
his
public
bond
works
and all
meeting.
that.
Okay.
Yelled at for not having a public facilities meeting.
Well, when we get it.
Yeah, it depends on when we get stuff back.
Yeah, right.
This is why we don't have them, because we didn't push to public works.
Okay, then we will move to 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Jane? Okay, we'll move to B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll move to C, police chief, Brian.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Brian? Okay. We'll go to D, library director, Ally is out. E, attorney, Ashley.
I don't have a report in the packet.
Okay.
Thank you all for getting back to me with the reviews so that I can get those put together for tonight. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, then we'll go to F, administrator, Nathan.
I do have a report in the packet and, just trying to do some last minute, accounts for the budget, for the other accounts, the other funds. We've been waiting on our, Ellers to kind of get some information back to us. It's a little different this year. Normally we have one project to budget for and to move into the stuff, but we've got like 5 or 6 or maybe even more, for next year, so it's a little more work, but, it should be done soon here.
Any questions for Nathan? Okay, we'll move to G, building permit report, and it is in the packet. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Anyone? Okay, we'll move to 11, communications and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News, Bob.
We will be having a meeting this Monday at 5:30 right here, and we're gonna be talking about the water sampling that we've been taking and sending in, and then also our next steps, next steps for expanding this watershed taxable base to grow, so.
Any questions for Bob? Okay, we'll move to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News. Jim is out. C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Reports and News, there's none. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Jane?
I have nothing.
E, Senior Activities, Jane?
Our next meeting is next Thursday at noon here.
Okay. 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. There's no comments or suggestions. Okay, we'll move to 13, motion to appoint minute taker for closed session. I will make a motion to appoint Shauna.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 14, I would need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
You have to read it out.
Under, oh yes, that's right. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically employee review.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Carrie.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion carried. 15, 5 minutes recess to clear the meeting room. 15, any action on matters discussed in closed session? We would need a motion.
I will make a motion, for a 2% raise for 2026 for the administrator position.
I'll
I'll
second.
Roll call, Carrie.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 19, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned at 8:09.